Hi everyone, welcome to your weekly true crime fix with me, Yinka Bokinni. It's where I tell you about a crime on the anniversary of it happening, and this week is an infamous one. It even has a Netflix special. Today, 13 years ago, Meredith Kercher died, and Amanda Knox, her roommate, was accused of her murder. Welcome to the anniversary. Shwa-na-na-na, 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 shwa-na-na-na. The story of Meredith Kercher, her life, her horrific death, has been totally overshadowed by the media storm that surrounded this case. Here in Italy, where Meredith died, and in the US, where Amanda was from, it absolutely blew up. I'm going to do my best to try and tell you the facts. Not the scandalous story of Foxy Knoxy, who is Amanda Knox, Meredith's flatmate and suspect in her murder, but what we actually know and what the police's theory is that happened. Meredith grew up in Croydon in southeast London, and she was a 21-year-old student at Leeds Uni. In 2007, she was studying history of European politics and Italian. She went to Perugia in Italy on an exchange year, and she arrived that summer. She lived in a flat share of a small cottage in the upstairs apartment, and she had 3 roommates, one of which was Amanda Knox, who was a 20-year-old American student. I've seen that there was some tension between them. Meredith was super quiet, Amanda wasn't, and they weren't friends. So on the morning of November 2nd, a neighbour who lived in the area found 2 mobile phones in her garden. She called the postal police, who are a unit of the police force in Italy that deal with crimes to do with communication devices. They traced the phone to Via della Pergola 7, which is the cottage that the 2 girls lived. When they arrived, Amanda and Raffaele, who was her new boyfriend that she'd met about a week before, the 2 of them were outside the house when the police arrived. They said that there had been a break-in in the house. Meredith's bedroom door was locked and she wasn't answering her phone. Amanda said that she was worried about her, and when the door was broken down, there was a beige duvet on the floor, and underneath the battered body of the 21-year-old. She was partially naked, her bra was cut off, it looked like she'd been sexually assaulted, and she was dead. Police did note that the break-in looked staged. The rock that was found was too big for the hole in the window and too heavy to throw from the ground floor up. The shards of glass were on top of the mess as opposed to underneath it. There was a camera, a handbag, a jewelry box and a laptop all out in the open, which hadn't been stolen. So if it was a break-in, why didn't the robbers rob anything? The police took over 400 pieces of evidence from the flat and they started their investigation. Meredith was strangled and she was stabbed twice in her neck. There were 40 wounds on her body, too many, according to the prosecution, to be inflicted by one person. Very soon after the discovery of Meredith's body and in the early stages of the investigation, Amanda and Raffaele were under suspicion. They just didn't seem as upset as one would expect, having discovered a murdered flatmate. They didn't go to the memorial, they didn't go to the vigil that was held for Meredith. Instead, they went to dinner with friends, and they also went to a lingerie shop to shop for some saucy underwear. There was a video of them kissing, lipsing up outside of the cottage while the police were inside searching, and to some it just looked suspicious. To others, it looked like they were comforting each other. Amanda said that she was at her boyfriend's apartment on the night that Meredith was killed, and her story didn't hold up. Raphael did corroborate, but when he was brought in for questioning, they kept him there for hours, and eventually he said that he wasn't sure if Amanda was there the whole night. Amanda did accompany Raphael to his interrogation, and her behaviour was just a bit odd in the waiting room. It said that she was doing the splits, that she was stretching, that she was doing cartwheels and weird stuff. Later on, Amanda says this was all blown out of proportion and she was just stretching because they were there for hours. Amanda's official story, the story that she kept returning to, she arrived at Via della Pergola 7 on the morning of the 2nd of November. She found the front door open and there were drops of blood in the bathroom that she shared with Meredith. There was also an unflushed toilet and someone took a dump in it. Meredith's bedroom door was locked. Amanda said that she took this as a sign that Meredith was sleeping, but when Amanda was brought in for further questioning and she was interrogated for a long time. The story changed. The police had seen a text on Amanda's phone that she had sent to her boss. He told her not to come in that day because they weren't busy, and then she said, okay, see you later. And they asked her about it over and over again, and they told her that they knew that she had something to do with Meredith's death. So Amanda said that she was there when Meredith was killed, but she wasn't the one who killed her. That it was Patrick Lumumba. He was Amanda's boss that texted her. He was the one that owned the bar that she worked at. And Amanda, Raphael and Patrick were all arrested on suspicion of the murder of Meredith. The police and the prosecutors took their theory as gospel. They wholeheartedly believed that the three had planned and executed the murder, fueled by drugs, drink and sex. And at that point, they thought the case was closed, but it wasn't that simple for the Italian police. After a few hours, Amanda Knox changed her mind and she submitted a handwritten statement. She went back to her original story, saying that she stayed out at her boyfriend's house on the night of the murder and she returned on the morning of the 2nd. She saw the house had been broken into, she took a shower, she went to get her boyfriend and came back to the house, where they were met by the police. But the investigators were not having it. They solved a very high profile case and they weren't going to let a thing as simple as a retracted confession get in their way. They searched Raffaelle's house and they found knives. There was, though, absolutely no evidence of Patrick Lumumba's involvement in the crime. None of the fingerprints and the DNA matched him. And a customer at the bar that he owned gave evidence that he was working at the bar. Loads of people came forward saying that he was there the entire night, so he was released. The evidence that was found by police was being tested, and it led back to a guy called Rudy Guede. His fingerprint was found in Meredith's room. His DNA was found in the apartment as well. By the time the police did identify him, it took them a while. Rudy was on the lam. He left Italy, he went on the run to Germany. An international arrest warrant was issued for him, and once they caught up with him, his story was a mad one as well. He said that he'd been in the apartment with Meredith and they started getting physical. He said he went to the toilet and he heard screaming. He saw a man standing over Meredith and the man tried to attack him. He cut his hand and that's why his DNA was there. He saw her bleeding with her throat slashed and he tried to stop the bleeding, and that's why his DNA was on her. Rudy asked for a fast-track trial and was found guilty and sentenced to 30 years. And a year and a half after Meredith was killed, the trial of Amanda Knox began. A lot of people think that there wasn't any evidence presented in this case, but that is not correct. There was that knife that they took from Raffaelle's house. It had Meredith's DNA on the blade and Amanda's on the handle. There were 5 spots of blood around the house that had Amanda and Meredith's DNA in it. The bra strap that they found had Rudy and Raffaelle's DNA on it, although it would later be contested because it was left in the house for more than 40 days after the initial search took place. During the trial, Amanda gave evidence on her own behalf and she spent 2 days doing this. She was found guilty, as was Raffaelle. 26 years for Amanda, 25 for Raffaelle. Amanda got a year extra for making up the Patrick Lumumba story. And you think the case would be done then, but no, it's not. There was an appeal in 2011. Rudy had his sentence drastically reduced to 16 years, and he testified, saying that he actually wasn't there and he thinks Amanda did it. They retested the DNA, the knife, the bra clip, and they found that there were 54 mistakes. Potential cross-contamination, the investigators didn't switch their shoe covers when walking from room to room, and there were 2 extra sources of DNA on that infamous bra strap as well. The appeal worked and the conviction was overturned. Amanda Knox and Raffaelle were set free. Amanda went back to Seattle, but it still wasn't over. The appeal was reviewed. Amanda didn't go back to Italy for this, but she was re-found guilty and sentenced this time to 28 years, Raffaelle 25 years. That's when the case against Amanda Knox went to Supreme Court. 5 judges decided there would be no retrial, and that would be it. She was free and the case was finally over. They cited that there were too many flaws in the investigation, the media attention was too intense, and the police were under too much pressure to solve the case, and they rushed the investigation. And that's where we stand today. Amanda Knox has her own true crime show. She's done a Netflix special. Regardless of what you think in the case, whether like the tabloids, you think it might have been a sex game gone wrong, whether you think Rudy did it alone or Raffaelle had something to do with it. One of the things that has been lost and often overlooked and forgotten in this case is that a 21-year-old girl lost her life. And I think that happens so much. It becomes about Foxy Knoxy as opposed to the fact that somebody was murdered and a family no longer have a daughter. Of course, all of the research links that I use, and there's loads of them, including a couple of documentaries and podcasts, are in the description box. As always, I would love to know what you think, but for now, our 10 minutes is up. That's it for this week's episode of The Anniversary, and I will see you next week.